Appamada's programs and facilities are supported through your generosity. Your support really does make a huge difference. You'll find a link for contributions on the website at appamada.org/contribute. Thank you so much.
Well, good morning. Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to talk this morning about practice discussion, the meeting between a Zen student and a Zen teacher, and how this aspect of our practice offers us something unique and unavailable by other means. I'm going to speak a little bit about Zen teachers and what that means, the role of Zen teachers in our practice generally. And I'm going to read a piece by Peg Syverson, one of the founders of this practice center, about this one-to-one meeting between teacher and student in our particular circumstance here at Appamada. This piece is also located on the website under the heading of teachings. You go to that page and it's under the heading of about practice discussion. It's particularly clear in its treatment of what practice discussion isn't. So I'm also going to add some quotes from other sanghas about their own vision and practice of practice discussion. My intention is to encourage all of us to explore and benefit from this facet of Zen practice. So it's a bit long, but I think it's worthwhile. This is Peg Syverson. What is practice discussion? It might be helpful to explain a bit about practice discussion, individual meetings with a teacher as part of Zen practice, for new folks or anyone else who might be a little mystified about it. Our Zen practice at Appamada, as we understand it, is relational practice. It's about connections and the flow of energy and information in our encounters with each other, not solitary contemplative achievement or individual self-improvement. In our view, the work of Zazen is in service of our relationships in and with the world. It's about enlightening concourse, the liberating possibilities in our coming together, and is not confined to a personal experience of exalted states of consciousness. For this reason, regular communication with teachers and Sangha members is central to our practice. But there is a lot of misunderstanding about this practice. The rule of thumb, Joko Beck, Peg Syverson's root teacher, the rule of thumb Joko Beck established is that her students would see her once a week if they were new to Zen practice. Once they have been practicing for 2 years or so, they would see her every 2 weeks. She found that new students needed a little more support in the challenges they meet in establishing their practice. Practice interviews are usually quite short, 10 minutes or so, although this can vary, and they focus on the person's practice. If the issue is more complex or requires more explanation or background, however, Joko would usually recommend that the student make an appointment with her outside of practice discussion when there is more time for providing a context. We follow this model. Practice discussion is not therapy, nor is it a substitute for therapy. It is not professional coaching. However, any of the issues that might also be addressed by therapy or coaching can have implications or opportunities for practice. So actually, there are no inappropriate topics for practice discussion. You do not, in fact, need to have a topic question, or issue. The fundamental purpose of practice discussion is the liberating possibilities of the encounter itself. Of course, practice discussion is always optional, but it can be extremely helpful and even necessary, as it is quite possible in practice to sail confidently off in a misguided direction, or to torture yourself needlessly with self-doubt, anxiety, or confusion. Practice discussion is available during any Zazen period by request. Sunday mornings, there will be an announcement at the start of each period so that folks who want to see a teacher for practice discussion can come and be seen in the practice discussion room. Senior students and Zen mentors also see people for practice discussion by appointment. The form of practice discussion is fairly simple. When it is your turn, please rise mindfully and go quietly to the door of the practice discussion room. Enter and close the door. Then, right from the door, make a bow toward the altar. Come to the end of the bowing mat and do a standing bow to the teacher. Then sit, and the practice discussion begins. When it is over, give a seated bow to the teacher, then stand, arrange the cushions, and make a standing bow to the teacher. There is no bow at the door when you leave. Any topic that is meaningful for you is fine for practice discussion with the teacher. You may not have a particular question or issue. It is still important to meet, even to just maintain and support you in your practice. Often, something will arise in the course of meeting that is relevant to your practice path. Please use this precious time wisely. There. So that's the instruction, the formal instruction that you can read again if you'd like. There's a few tweaks in that I think we could probably make in the verbiage on the website. It refers specifically to PEG, and I know it would be good to change that to teachers in general. But basically, those are the instructions. So the experience of an authentic meeting, of, as they say in Zen, tangling your eyebrows with another person dedicated to the work of waking up, is an invaluable part of Zen practice. Like the practice of soji, samu, which is work practice, or the practice of sewing a rakusu, practice discussion broadens our base of Zen experience, and so offers more and more opportunities for learning about ourselves, the world, life, everything there is. To address a few formal issues, you may have read or heard about Dokusan. Dokusan, translated, is going alone to the High One. This is a formal meeting between a student and an ordained Zen priest or a Zen master who has received Dharma transmission. The meeting between a lay entrusted teacher or a Zen mentor is at Appamada called practice discussion. This is a less formal, more loosely structured one-to-one meeting between student and teacher. The question remains, why? For what purpose? When I first started sitting at Appamada, I had never practiced in a Sangha that offered practice discussion. When I first came, I sat far away in the corner, away from the main show, the teacher, the senior students, the bells, the altar. It took all my courage to let Peg know that I would need a chair to sit in rather than sit on the floor. She, without raising an eyebrow, showed me the chairs we have. I watched as other people in the Zendo would go back to the small, quiet room down the hall, posted with a sign reading, "Please do not disturb." Sometimes I heard laughter coming down the hall, and I tried to enfold that into my zazen. More often, nothing, silence. Someone would be touched on the shoulder by the teacher. They would disappear down the hall, shutting the door to the room. But as much as I yearned to understand, to be a perfect Zen student, to suck the marrow, as they say, of Zen, I was very reluctant to take that step. I imagined myself not good enough, with nothing important enough to say or ask. This in itself is a practice, to become aware in a gentle, curious way of why we don't want to go to practice discussion. What story am I telling about me, about who I am, and how others are, that I'm believing so completely that I turn away from this opportunity for practice? Another Sangha member in another Sangha says, practice discussion is a practice of authentic meeting. It is an opportunity to discuss your meditation practice and how it applies to your daily life. It is fine to bring up a problem or a question, or you can just describe your practice. You do not have to be profound or Zen. Just be yourself. How hard that can be. In my case, myself was, in my mind, clearly not good enough, so best kept under wraps. How could I possibly just be myself in such an exalted situation? Another story. The other person in this endeavor is special, has something I don't have that I want, and has the power to bestow upon me. Here is an old tale about Zen teachers. The great Zen teacher, Huangbo, strides into the hall and says to the assembled monastics, "You people are all dreg slurpers. If you go on like this, when will you ever see today? Don't you know that in all of China there are no teachers of Zen?" A monk comes forward and says to him, "Then what about all those people like you who set up Zen places that students flock to like birds?" Hangbo replies, "I don't say there is no Zen, only that there are no Zen teachers." Zen teacher and poet Norman Fisher writes, "Students are responsible for their own practice and their own awakening. No one can communicate a truth worth knowing. The only worthwhile truth is the one you find uniquely for your own life." On the other hand, Zen is not Lone Ranger practice. Our practice is at Appamada, as Peg said, is to be relational, a practice of finding a way within the often challenging cauldron of relationships. Here, at work, with our partners, among Sangha members, in our families, we encounter what we prefer, what we avoid, and what mystifies us. Appamada presents the idea that staying present in our day-to-day interactions, we will learn what we need to know, and that wisdom and compassion will develop from that knowledge. The practice of being fully oneself, fully, wholeheartedly present with another person, Zen teacher or grocery clerk, is transformative. That is our practice. Zen teacher Noman Tim Burton at Red Center Zen writes, "As a teacher, My goal isn't to figure you out, or give you good advice, but rather to listen deeply and be a mirror to help you see for yourself what's most alive and important in your life and practice. Often we leave practice discussion with a feeling of renewed energy and inspiration. So that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much for your kind attention. I hope that that is helpful in some way, and that you'll consider, if you haven't, or if you have, taken advantage of what's available through practice discussion. Thank you. So I think we have lots of time for questions. Again, I like these short Dharma talks. I thought I would spread it out with Peg's long quote, but no. Yeah, Jessica.
I was just really struck by this image of, I've never heard knitting eyebrows before.
Tangling eyebrows.
With one another.
Yeah, with
one another.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I just really like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think the actual saying is about tangling eyebrows with the old masters, but it seems to me that that's practice discussion, tangling eyebrows with another person.
There's a real deep intimacy in that. Mm-hmm. And it reminds me of the Hawaiian culture when you say aloha. You punch your foreheads together and you breathe each other's breath.
Wow.
Sounds very similar.
Yeah.
And to meet in that way, like to actually be willing to meet in that way with one another, that's...
Yeah. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
Not always easy. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lynn, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, Anne, you did it to me again. I'm the one hiding in the corner with you. I'm way back there. Bells. I so identified with that. I've been a Zen practitioner for, I don't know, a long time now, and I still have this. I don't know what it is, but you have given me so much to think about today that I want to re-listen to this, take better notes than I took. But it was just so profound. And I just have to learn how to do it. And I think your talk is a good start.
Good, yeah. I don't think there's really much to learn. It's just jumping in. So, and then you learn as you go. So, cut yourself some slack.
Yeah, but what you said about being yourself, and how can you possibly be yourself in such a situation? I mean, lots to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Anne.
Hi, and your beautiful rakusu.
Yes, thank you for your teaching. This was wonderful and brings up a lot of thoughts that I have had about practice discussion as somebody who's had the privilege of having therapy, you know, not ashamed of that at all. I don't think probably anybody here is either. But the division between therapy and practice discussion is something that has always kind of vexed me. How do I avoid going over that line? And it would be so easy. And today I realized, I think, that therapy is about the past and practice discussion is about today. and not the future. It's about today and my practice today. And that's how it will help me probably decide in practice discussion what's appropriate to talk about. And I'm just grateful for that sort of realization. It takes away a level of fear, I guess, about being inappropriate in practice discussion. Not that there is all this judgment and rules around that so much, except that, and I'm not trying to be perfect, just it gives me a little bit of comfort to understand what to bring and who to bring, which me to bring. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that in my reading about this, I was struck over and over again by people saying, in actuality, there's no inappropriate topic, but addressing a topic from the point of view of Buddhist practice or Zen practice is really, for me, one of the differentiations between practice discussion and therapy. But I think you're right, staying in the moment. Like someone was saying, not necessarily bringing a question or an issue, but, and this took me quite a while to experiment with, but to go into practice discussion without a question and just be willing to sit with the teacher and see what arose, and to watch my discomfort with just sitting with somebody and my need to be entertaining or fill up space or be profound. And be curious about that. So, thank you. Joel.
Thank you. Thanks, Nancy. I was having trouble unmuting before. Well, thank you for making the side comment that you want to be profound or entertaining or so on. I've had many practice discussions with Peg, with Flint, with peers at Appamada, and I have that concern every time that I if I'm going to ask someone for time to see me, that it has to be something good, and but what I know is that there's always within me something that is yearning for connection, in a kind of supportive way.
Yeah.
And that's not always fair to the teacher I'm meeting with, or to the peer that I'm meeting with. That it's, as we use the language of IFS at Appamada a lot, and that the scared, wounded child part of me wants to come forward every time. And I feel like that's unfair to the teacher, to the person I'm meeting with as well, because it's every time. It's it's like, oh, that again. So as you were pointing out, you do some parsing of potential things and potential questions that you might ask, potential approaches to how you present yourself. So there's like Irving Goffman's famous book, The Presentation of Self in Everyday Life. Practice discussion is just a distillation of that, right? To me. Anyway, so I just want to say I have great sympathy, because I deal with it every time. I have great sympathy for anybody who feels like it's slightly scary to ask for practice discussion, to come forward, particularly in an established practice discussion type of relationship. It doesn't, I find that it does not get easier for myself. I don't know how it is for anybody else. This is a delightful talk, and thank you so much for presenting it.
You're welcome. I would disagree with that I parse. I'm sure I do. Of course I do. Decide what to say, what actually I'm going to let out of my mouth. I'm very aware of that in certain situations where I imagine, I can't say that because that's too much. But I think of that as my fear. And I know exactly what you mean, Joel, about here we are, once again, talking about the same old thing. I mean, for me, I end up a lot of times talking about my doubt. And that's a big issue for me. And I always feel like they've heard this. They've heard this 10, 20 times. But I think that's the way it goes. I think that you have to let the teacher decide where to go with that. And not be taking such good care of the teacher's thoughts and feelings, to trust the teacher. To be really empty and open to change. So, not to disagree with what you're saying, but I guess to add something to it. So, thank you.
Melon asked if you can reread the Norman Fisher and the last quote.
Let's see, the Norman Fisher. Do you want both of those things? The last quote was not by Norman Fisher. Norman Fisher, students are responsible for their own practice and their own awakening. No one can communicate a truth worth knowing. The only worthwhile truth is the one you find uniquely for your own life. On the other hand, Zen is not Lone Ranger practice. And then the last quote that I read was from a teacher at Red Cedar Zen. My goal isn't to figure you out or give you great advice, but rather to listen deeply and be a mirror to help you see for yourself what's most alive and important in your life and practice. Often we leave practice discussion with a feeling of renewed energy and inspiration.
And thank you so very much for this. One of the things I've been really appreciating lately is each of the Dharma talks or subjects in certain other situations where the basics are shared. And these are some of the basics of our practice together. And the thing is, I've been here 3 years, and during that time, I haven't been able to do as much reading as someone might because my eyes weren't working at all well. And my brain wasn't working real well. So that combination meant that I have needed to learn almost everything that I have been able to absorb from each of you. And when we think about it, that's the way it used to be for people. And it's been very rich and wonderful, but little bits of things that like what you were saying is like, oh, maybe this is all old hat to you or something like that, right? But each person who brings forward some of these things that are basic in some ways. Each person has their own experience, and it touches another person, not necessarily every person, but and I just think I think it's kind of an important thing for us to hold on to within it, is that we aren't out there looking for something new and something sparkling, something that we just read or found online or something like that, but to speak with each other about some of the main things that we practice with together. And I really appreciate this one as one of those things. I think that there were a number of things both in Peg's talk, which I didn't have an opportunity to read, and with many things that you said from your own experience. And that's, you're saying it from the position of a person who has practice discussion and gives practice discussion. And so that's quite wonderful. And I just wanted to say, I think this was very rich and has put some perspectives that I hadn't seen from. So thank you very much. Oh, and the other thing is that it took me a while to realize that people who are offering practice discussion actually want people to come. I often was just thinking, oh, I don't want to bother her meditation. It's like she may need to meditate with other people sometime, and there she is jumping up all the time for the practice discussion. But that's backwards, because you offer something and people use it is something that's rich for both of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And encourages each other that way in so many ways. And yet I come to meditation, and being with others for meditating is so fantastic for me. It's so where I need to be, that I often don't raise my hand during meditation. But I have made use of making it as a separate time with people when I need to. And so that's, I think, an okay answer too. But
Yeah.
thank you so very much.
Thank you. Yeah, and that's a really good point about there are ways to have practice discussion with teachers or Zen mentors that don't involve coming out of meditation or zazen. So those are on the website. I'm thinking about you, Becky, and other people that maybe are challenged by reading the website.
I can personally can do the network thing, because I can put my hand pictures up and still,
yeah. So there are pictures of the teachers and the Zen mentors, and that you can contact them and arrange a time to do practice discussion. Yeah, that's a really good point. But yeah, I think it's
to be considered, though.
Yeah, to be
I expect
considered.
other, yes.
Yeah, and I think it's really interesting. I mean, you were talking about, oh, I don't want to bother this person. They should get to sit just like everybody else does. But I would say that, I mean, a saying that I've heard before, no teachers and no students, that the teachers learn to be teachers by having students come to them and you're right, you're absolutely right that the interaction is the thing that's happening between two people is the thing that everyone learns from. Not, you're not coming for great advice like Tim Burnett says. So thank you. Rosemarie.
Hi, Anne. Thanks so much for this talk. Like Becky said, it's always good to hear about the basics and to be reminded. And I just wanted to share my gratitude for all of the practice discussion times that are available. And that's just during Zazen. Every single weekday plus Sunday, the 3 periods on Sunday, affords so many opportunities right when you're there. You could go to the website, like you said, and have one that's not involved with our sitting. But if you're in the Zendo or online, you can it's like right there. So it's really such a generous offering, and I really wanted to thank all of those of you who offer it, and the whole structure. I also wanted to say that if you are looking on the website for the teacher scheduling, it's under calendar, which is not so intuitive to me. So for those who might be new. And then I think you would go to people if you wanted to schedule the mentor, right? Okay.
Right.
So just wanted to put those 2 things out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an ongoing, it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
It's always good to hear corrections that need to be made. So
Yeah,
thank you.
but a lot of gratitude for the generous offerings. Thank you.
Well, I think we've covered everybody online. Any other questions? We can go. Yeah, John Eric.
I just want to thank you for offering this talk, and it's been fascinating for me to hear how everyone approaches this differently. Something that I've kind of taken for granted. It's just part of our practice. Really interesting, and how something so simple as sitting in front of another person can be so evocative.
Yeah.
I need to perform, or I don't want this part to come forward, or all the different things that come up, and I have my own version of that.
Yeah.
And what a rich source of things to practice with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, thinking about the relational aspect and being offered the chance to have a relationship and what our reaction to that is. Is very informative. Yeah. So thank you. Okay, well, I think we're gonna go on and finish our service. So thank you again for your attention.